It's not just the United States that's dealing with rising costs related to the Iran war. People all over the world are worried about higher energy bills. Here in Germany, Chancellor Friedrich Merz was grilled about Berlin's position during Wednesday's session in Parliament. Merz announced that his government was considering economic measures to help Germans deal with price rises stemming from the war, but he warned that consumers would have to bear some of the burden of higher costs. Merz's remarks came a day after his government came in for some rare criticism by Germany's largely symbolic President Frank-Walter Steinmeier. He said Berlin should be speaking out more forcefully against the U.S. and Israeli war in Iran. In Parliament, Chancellor Merz said he was trying to help end the conflict.
I'm in close consultation with colleagues from the European Union and other countries, including Britain and Norway. We're trying to do everything we can to persuade the United States and Israel to seek a diplomatic solution to this war. Some of the things being said don't make sense to us from a strategic vantage point. So we are trying to use our influence within the EU and other bodies to help bring about an end to the war. But that requires willingness on all sides, including from Iran, which doesn't seem willing right now.
For more on this, we're joined now by DW's chief political editor, Michaela Küfner. Michaela, Chancellor Merz says he and his European colleagues are trying to persuade the U.S. and Israel to pursue a diplomatic solution to the war. Did he offer any details today about what exactly Germany and its partners are doing in that regard?
Well, clearly they are in contact with the United States. I just want to remind us all that there still are conflicting reports between Iran and the US whether talks are actually taking place. So nobody's in a position to resolve that. And that's also something that the German Chancellor recognized here, that they don't have the full insight, but clearly the Europeans have been willing to offer whatever diplomatic avenues they have to help the United States and Israel, who are clearly set on their own path, whatever that may be in detail. Clearly, the Europeans and Germany with them are struggling to keep up with what is the actual strategic thinking, having also seen in that statement we just heard, but also in the past, some mild criticism that there is that the German Chancellor isn't really convinced that there is a strategy for day one after the fighting. And this is a lingering concern here in Germany and in Europe, as the entire world is increasingly feeling the fallout of this war, which is seeing soaring energy prices.
Indeed, like other countries, Germany is feeling the economic impact of the war, particularly from those higher energy prices you mentioned. What did the Chancellor have to say about that?
Well, he basically pointed at the action that the government is planning on taking. It's being decided in Parliament this week to have a closer eye on those price rises. We did hear that energy companies here in Germany had a disastrous meeting with politicians and political representatives, really struggling to explain those stern price spikes, which are seeing some of the highest prices at the gas station here in Germany in the whole of Europe. What we are unlikely to see is the government subsidizing energy. There's an experience in the past over the war with Ukraine when the government did pour billions into softening the blow when it came to energy, and most of that money ended up being a profit for energy companies rather than softening the blow for consumers. And that's really the stretch, the real contradiction that the government is operating within.
Michaela, I want to ask you about something else. Yesterday, the German president, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, delivered a speech sharply criticizing President Trump for starting the war in Iran. Did Chancellor Merz offer a response to that?
he didn't, because no MP asked him during an entire hour of question time. We journalists were looking at each other somewhat in disbelief over that lack of a key question that everybody was asking themselves. We did hear from the Conservative parliamentary group leader Jens Spahn yesterday, and he did say that it was up to the government to define policy and to really have a position on that, because it is also very easy to confuse the role of the German president with the German Chancellor. But it's important to note that the German president, while being the head of state, has a largely ceremonial role and is disconnected from the actual political positioning of Germany. That is the business of the German government led by Friedrich Merz. He basically got away without having to offer an answer on this question, but it does show a deep gulf in the public portrayal of the German position between the German president and the Chancellor, and that really shouldn't be the case. The role of the German president is traditionally and constitutionally an apolitical one.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, of course, he's trying to lead Germany through a very difficult time. What Germany does as Europe's largest economy and given its geographical position is hugely important for the rest of Europe and potentially the world. What else did the Chancellor have to say today in that hour of answering questions that might be of interest to our international viewers, Michaela?
Well, what was interesting, that particularly on Iran, there was he has shifted his position slightly. He went from describing a dilemma to now saying that, of course, Germany would have to pull its weight when it comes to securing the Strait of Hormuz. He was asked about fuel prices and said, well, that's the reason why we need to get this war ended as fast as possible. But he says all of this in the knowledge and the awareness in Parliament that he would need a mandate from the Parliament, and it would have to be also under an international mandate. Germany cannot act alone if it were to deploy ships or any kind of forces abroad. That would be a hurdle to take. And I think that spat between the president, who comes originally from the Social Democrats, who himself is a former foreign minister, and the sitting chancellor highlights that this would not be a parliamentary walk in the park for Friedrich Merz necessarily, despite the fact of being in a coalition with the Social Democrats.
Michaela, thank you very much. Our chief political editor, Michaela Küfner.